Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. Thanks for joining myself, Richie and Tom, in discussing this week's Stadia topics. On this week's show, we discuss Google's apparent broken delivery system, some updates on Ubisoft's release schedule, and some of our favourite spooky games, with much, much more. So without further delay, on to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome back to this week's show. This is episode 5 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. We hope you've all had a great week with plenty of gaming, and you're all getting excited and ready for a spooky Halloween. I'd like to welcome my co-host this week. So welcoming back our techie teacher and host of last week's episode, Tom.
Happy episode 5.
Exactly. Tom's now Spanish apparently when he comes back. And off in the far echoing distance last week, the man of many pixels, Richie, has also returned. Hi, Richie.
Hello there.
Hello. How are we both doing this week, gentlemen?
Doing good.
Good,
Yeah,
Richie?
good. Can't complain.
Good. So hopefully you've both recovered from last week's antics.
Just not hungover this week.
Not hungover this week. I'm actually surprisingly sprightly because we got an extra hour in bed. So thanks to the clocks going back, I'm feeling a bit fresh. Unlike last week, yeah. So we wanted to start, I think, this week by thanking all of our listeners out there who've been tuning in abundance the last week, and we've really seen our numbers spike on a nice upwards trend. So thank you massively for that. We really do appreciate every one of you listening and tuning in. If you're new to the show, remember you can find all of our activities over on Twitter at Sounds of Stadia, or check us out on all the top podcasting platforms, including YouTube, just by searching for Sounds of Stadia. So, after being in a rough state myself last week, this week we'll kickstart off with our lovely segment of What State Are Ya? So, gentlemen, do you want to come with me this week?
Yeah, where are we heading off?
We're going to journey north into the cold, ice-covered lands of Alaska.
Ooh,
that's
the
right.
frozen north.
Exactly, yeah. So put on a thick winter coat, wrap a scarf around your neck, and let me run you through some interesting points about Alaska.
Fantastic.
So, doing my usual research, quick Google typo. The largest state is apparently Alaska in the entire U.S. Union.
Now, is that large by geography or by population?
Geography. No, not that many people are going to want to live up in that cold,
sparsely
cold environment. Yeah, definitely. So much so, actually, Richie, that feeds into my next little factoid, which is there's apparently approximately one bear for every 21 people.
1 per 21.
One bear for every 21
I don't like
human
those
beings.
odds. I couldn't.
No,
bear it.
that's risky.
I mean, we've just said it is quite sparsely populated, so there's probably not even a lot of bears.
Well, that's true. Yeah, there's 21 people there and one bear. That's
that's it. Yeah.
Unbearable.
Unbearable. Oh dear. Right. So, bear with me while I recover from that joke, Tom.
Hey.
We might need an hour.
Swiftly moving on.
But no, and actually another one I already knew about Alaska, which is my little tidbit, which I got from a TV show, was there's a town called Nome, Nome. And I learned this from one Mr. Stephen Fry, that apparently the reason it's called Nome is when they did the mapping of Alaska way back when, they didn't know what it was called, the area, so someone actually wrote ?name on the map. Okay, and apparently when that was transcribed downwards, a bit of confusion, and it just got titled Nome, whereas it was actually just an incorrect spelling of name.
So what you're saying is the people of Nome are living in a spelling mistake?
Essentially, yeah. Cold, bear-ridden spelling mistake.
It's just one of those old-timey autocorrects, isn't it? Just gone horribly wrong.
If only he had autocorrect. If only. But yeah, so that's all I've really got on Alaska. So it's cold. There's lots of bears, and you probably live in a made-up place with a made-up name. But then again, all places are made. Exactly.
So welcome, and thank you for tuning in.
So yeah, so shiver off that cold, and we'll go from one end of the thermometer to the other, because the internet this week, gentlemen, has been quite ablaze with some hot topics. So I think without further delay, let's jump into the
super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka gents,
the news.
The news.
Are we still not getting that timing?
No,
That's the fun of it though. Now it's just
maybe we should actually practice it once off camera.
Nah.
Nah.
We'll get a barbershop
nobody got time for
quartet in
that.
to do it
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah.
One day we'll hire one. But yeah, so in terms of this week's news, so I think top of the reel has to be the crazy explosion of kickback. I think we saw in forums and threads throughout the week on delivery dates. So obviously last week we discussed Google's actual launch date, 19th of November. Can't wait. But does this launch date mean that we'll be getting the products on said launch date? I know we had a bit of a laugh, Tom, over your delayed pre-order last week out. However, apparently whenever you pre-ordered it might not necessarily mean you're going to get it on the day either way. So do one of you two want to give us a rundown on what's been kicking off this week regarding dates?
Okay. So initially, as we speculated, as things were talked about, it did turn out that that was going to be the case. So the people who pre-ordered later would receive the product later. Now, over the course of the past week since the previous podcast, we've actually now seen our orders update online to show us an estimated delivery date. So what sort of dates were you guys looking at?
Richie?
I think initially my date said the 21st of November.
Okay.
And I think I ordered it was the 7th of June.
Okay,
it's
so
quite
21st.
early.
21st. Okay.
Yeah.
And Chris, what about yourself?
Mine was the 6th of June for the pre-order, and I think mine was showing 21st or 22nd as well.
Okay.
So again, not the 19th, which is the worldwide global launch in these select countries.
And Chris, you ordered it day one, didn't you? So
from what I recall, I think it was I watched the video
Okay.
of them announcing pre-orders were available, or I watched the YouTube drop or something like that, and then pretty much followed the link, went straight to the website and put my pre-order in, and then pinged it over to Richie. So yeah, it was pretty quick.
Fair enough. So for myself, several months later, quite a number of months later after yourselves, it turned out that my date was looking to be the 27th of November. So not too long after you guys, surprisingly, considering the gap in time there. So a lot of people sort of started getting up in arms a little bit, didn't they, on the internet? We started to see a little bit of panic because people who had ordered on day one were now starting to think, oh, shit, we might not actually get it on day one. How did you feel when you saw that?
Well, last week I made the point where the words Google actually said were processed, not delivered. So the orders will be processed in the order they received them. Mm-hmm. And I was a bit annoyed actually when I saw that delivery date, although it was a few days after the launch. I think there is a genuine expectation when you pre-order something, it to be in your hands on the day it comes out. It's kind of the point of a pre-order, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest kickback they've got is the fact that when you pre-order something, you expect to have it on launch or at whenever the actual thing goes live, because that is, like as you said, Richie, that is the whole concept of a pre-order. You are ordering something in advance ahead of the rest of the general public to get your hands on it, first come first serve basis. I think people have maybe looked too much into the dates being set in stone, because as a lot of them say, it's estimated delivery or delivered by. So yes, it might say 21st, 22nd and later dates for a lot of people, but I think we need to take into the fact that all logistics commerce companies have this kind of little bit of leeway, because at the end of the day, they're trying to get these items shipped out from a warehouse, a delivery that's probably came in from abroad potentially. And it's not as easy as just saying, yes, it'll be dropped to your doorstep at this time, because the package essentially has to pass through a lot of channels and a lot of different hands just to get to your doorstep. It gets sent to localized distribution centers. I mean, Amazon are the kings at it, but even then, sometimes they don't come all at the same time, because you've got to remember, you're not one person. These companies deal with millions and millions of transactional objects on a daily basis, and you're just one tiny little parcel in one little cog in that entire big wheel.
And often the delivery in those cases is out of the company's hands, isn't it? It's usually third party. So you're relying on somebody else. So you have to have some margin for error, which I'm sure we can sort of, you can expect that.
I'd argue the margin of error could go up to the 19th, because the controller and the Chromecast is effectively what you're getting in box. There's no reason they can't send that before the 19th. And just activate the service on the 19th.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, Richie. I hadn't thought about that. Yes, it does go live, but you're right in saying as long as they just don't flick the switch and turn those servers on, you've essentially got a Chromecast, which you can already go out and buy, by the
Yeah.
way. And a control of that is essentially just a paperweight until the system goes live.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, why couldn't they start shipping these out? I know they have a set date to launch, and I think maybe the messaging just needs to have been a bit clearer.
I think Google towards this launch have been a bit murky with the messaging, and I think this is where the problems are coming in. As I mentioned, saying that it was getting initially saying that they're going to process the orders in the order that they got them, gave room for the internet to speculate, and when the internet speculates, it can get a bit fiery.
It can
Just a little, a bit spicy.
And then you add the delivery date on top of that, and I wasn't surprised at the outrage.
Well, to add fuel to the fire, a lot of people who took their rage directly to Google support, directly to customer service, to start getting some answers. Why did I pre-order when I'm not going to get the product on day one, and so on. And then the questioning started to change a little bit, and less so much about the actual receiving of the hardware and so on, because we've been told from day one that when we pre-order, we're going to get an email as well that will allow us to create an account to get everything up and running for the 19th. Now, here's where the mixed messaging comes in once again, because Google support, more recently, I have a screenshot from today with somebody contacting Google support where they've been told that once the product has been shipped or once the email has been sent out, will they be able to set up their account and play via the Chrome browser on launch day? Google support says no, you cannot. So even though you have pre-ordered, if you haven't received the box, supposedly somebody at Google has turned around and said now you cannot play it at launch until you get the box.
So there's probably an activation code or something in that box that you physically need to activate your account or something along them lines.
But why not send that by the email?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
That's right there. That's stumped us. So I think I'm hearing mixed messages again, because on the one hand, I've just seen this as of about 30 minutes ago, this screenshot from Google support. But on the other hand, I've also seen screenshots with Google support again confirming that people will be getting products in advance, not after the launch date. And again, we're in this sort of limbo where there's a little bit of mixed information. So
yeah. It's one of those things where I think they're definitely having some teething issues with rolling out this pre-order. We've got to remember this is probably Google's, aside from the Pixel launch a few years back when they launched the Pixel 1, this is probably their most logistically heavy thing they've ever had to deal with, because we've got to remember they are a software company through and through, and they're used to dealing things on a digital platform where you can distribute them to the masses with the click of a button.
Well,
and now, like I said,
about the email.
Yeah, and now I think they're stuck in this middle ground where they can't, because there's nothing out in the wild yet, they can't really do right for doing wrong almost, because like you said, Tom, people are getting mixed information. I've seen many things in the forums this past few days around delivery dates, and people have apparently spoken to them, but how much of that is people, as you mentioned, stoking the fire, where these chat forums I've seen screenshots of, do we have any legit proof that this is actually just a Google forum? Because I've been on the Stadia site and I can't seem to find anywhere to speak directly with Google support.
No, that's very true.
I'd imagine you can do it through other channels. I'm sure Google have their like kind of live web chat, as a lot of people do. But you look on the website,
Google responding to some tweets that people have sent them about the issue.
Yeah, that seems to be the most vocal one. But I mean, I'm on the Stadia site now, and there's the help center, there's feedback, there's FAQs on loads and loads of information that drills down to, I'd imagine, all the questions that they've been hit with over the last couple of weeks. But there's no like little pop-up box that asks me if I want to speak live chat to somebody, because we've got to imagine they're still all undergoing vigorous training for when the live date actually comes around.
I think once again, it might be a case of information not just filtering out to the public, but also filtering down from the higher ups at Google too, because I've just pulled up another tweet again from @GoogleStadia from the 15th of September that states, you will be able to access Stadia through the Chrome browser on your laptop or computer from launch. You could also access if you have a Pixel 3 and 3a device along with tablets running Chrome OS on launch day. More devices will be made available in the future. So again, mixed messages. So maybe it is just something written down on paper that's causing a little bit of confusion.
We've touched on this the last few weeks, but I think one of the problems they're having with this launch is the messaging is being a bit murky. They don't seem to have a clear way of messaging. Things are coming from different places. There's lack of information, which is causing people to speculate, and people are taking other people's speculation as matter of fact and perpetuating it. And I really think Google really need to look at this messaging problem and get in front of it and clean it all up.
I do believe that a corporation like Google should take that and tidy it up. But I do have a feeling that a lot of this is coming from Chinese whispers in a way, like he said, she said. It gets confused, it gets lost in translation. Then somebody posts something online that says one thing, all of a sudden mass panic arises, and then we find contradicting arguments from elsewhere. So
I totally agree.
This is where you get a public-facing figure to give an interview to a major magazine or even YouTube. Just get yourself on the front page of YouTube, major figure, address the issue.
Or a Google Connect, some would say, might be a good idea. Just not long before launch. So we're under a month into it now. It would be really good if we got, again, one of these big announcements. But yeah, I think China, because again, you could give each of us 5 minutes and we could go away, copy a Stadia logo off the internet, put it onto a fake Twitter thread or a fake whatever, and use the correct font, and already you've got fuel for the fire as such. So I've seen a lot of the community groups get a bit frustrated because the people keep dropping in questions about these dates, and it's a story this week that I've seen so many posts of people jumping in and arguing. And some people say their thoughts as though they're fact. Some people are a bit more loose with the terminology of it, but I think you're right there, Tom. It's Chinese whispers. And until we get an actual statement or Google Connect or an official tweet, it's all speculation. I think we need to just refer back to traditional logistics. If you order something from Amazon, anywhere else, what's your time frame, what you're expecting to be? I'm not overly worried about it arriving too late, because apparently, which I think has also fallen on from this news story, is that the delivery system is definitely a bit broken, it would appear.
Yeah.
Considering I ordered it several months after you guys, if it turns out that it's only going to be a week after launch for me, I'm okay with that.
I think there's a bit of...
Because even if it was a few weeks after launch, you've still pre-ordered within the window before, unless it was the day before, which I'd imagine there should have been a cut-off date for pre-orders, but they're still taking them now. Maybe it's not on the Founders Edition, but they're still taking pre-orders.
It's a fixed number of things they're selling as well. This is why I do think that, unless it is like you pre-order the day before, I think there is a genuine expectation it should be there on the 19th.
There should be a cut-off point, because they do it with mobile devices as well, where when Apple launched their iPhone, when the Pixel even launched, it was announced, pre-orders started the following day, and then the device launched a week later. So you've got a very small window there to get your name on that sheet with that particular device. And these for the Stadia launch, they've had infinite amounts of time longer, and yet the closer we creep towards it, the more ambiguous it gets in regards to when people are going to get these damn devices. Whereas if I pre-ordered the Google Pixel when it was announced, I could go and essentially collect it from a store a week later, no problems. And this is again a global launch, so for some reason Stadia seems to be struggling with its message of when and where. But I know we saw some funny points this week from people discussing refreshing their delivery days.
Yep.
Does anyone want to give us a bit of insight into what's been happening with that?
Go on, Richie. You can lead this one.
Okay. So apparently, if you go into your account, into your order, and change your delivery address, which you can actually change to the same delivery address, which is what I did, you will find that the date changes. So my current date is the 7th of November.
Wow, so you're going to be our guinea pig with Stadia, because somehow you're getting it well before launch.
Yeah, so there's definitely problems with delivery dates there.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm just going to quickly check to see if it hasn't shifted since this is like 2 days ago I tried this, but
you're going to get a knock at your door in a minute, and it's your postman telling you that it's here today. But that would be the funniest thing ever.
It's back to the 22nd.
Okay.
So this is another thing that I think helped stoke the fires around delivery dates this week. Was so many people started going on and posting screenshots of their order where they'd amended their address to the same address, and the dates were getting shuffled around. I'd seen people apparently on this Google live chat that I can't find, but I'm sure it does exist. I'm not saying people are liars who are forging these Google conversations, but I've seen people go on and specifically apparently speak to Google representatives asking about the date of the delivery. Google representatives have replied back saying, yeah, you'll get it on the 7th of November. And then they've replied back to them and said, you do realize it doesn't ship globally or worldwide until the 19th. And they've said, we've had a word with our logistics department. It'll be there on the 7th, as it says on your order. And I don't think there's some message being lost between the weeds there, or it's an automated answer service or something. But again, this is all the stuff that just adds to that fire and enrages people when people just want to know the facts. They want to know when it's coming. Is it going to be there for launch? And I think it's little things like this that are just getting people a bit too wound up because we're all starved for this content.
I think the thing is
news as well.
Yeah, we are. But I think the thing is at this point, we should just expect, we know the launch date is going to be the 19th. Something is going to happen before then, but people need to just take a moment, sit back, chill, not freak out about delivery dates and so on, and just sort of let it roll. I expect that we probably will get some sort of official announcement regarding this order date changing and so on, because probably most of the vocal community are going to be talking about it right now. So just hang fire for the moment, and we'll find out some information and we'll get it across ASAP. But we are 23 days away now. 23 days. So yeah.
So be patient, everyone.
This could actually be a good thing in the long run. Google, they're kind of going through a baptism of fire at the moment with this launch, and there's a big opportunity for them to learn, because Stadia is a complete new division of Google. Everyone involved is new.
Yeah, the poor new guy who's been in charge of these delivery dates must be pulling his hair out in his office in California, wherever he may be.
Yeah, even the guys who've come from the gaming industry, they're new to Google. So this could be just, it's new.
Yeah, I think the reality is we just all need to have a bit of patience, understand that it's they're testing new waters out here, and I have no doubt that we'll have it within a small window of launch. Hopefully we all do get them on the correct day, on the 19th. Fingers crossed. But as we said before, we are founders, and this is essentially, I think, what you have to admit you sign up for. It's essentially the beta version we've all jumped on board with. So yes, there are going to be teething issues. There's going to be delays to games, which we spoke about last week, because we don't know really until we get hands-on with it, until we test this stuff out, and until we are live playing games and Google themselves get that feedback of how well it's going. We don't know, but I think what we all need to do is just take a step back, realize that everything's new, and just look forward to the games at the end of the day. Would you guys agree?
Yep,
I do. Absolutely.
Exactly. We're so patient over in England, aren't we? We'll get in a nice orderly queue, and we'll wait until they'll hand us them whenever that may
be. And we'll
be.
tut about it.
The advantage of a weekly podcast is we've had a couple of days to digest this news.
Yeah, we didn't jump on the Wednesday or Tuesday whenever it went live, and I know we dropped it in our chat group, and we all instantly started checking our order, checking them. But again, none of us went straight to rage mode. It was very much like, that's awfully disappointing.
I was a bit salty, I'm going to admit.
Yeah, and again, but once you've stewed in a couple of days, you've had a couple of nights sleep, the clocks go back and you get an extra hour in bed, and then you wake up in the sunny sunshine of England. It's not too hard to look on and think, I'm really pissed right now.
One thing you'll learn
about record a Tuesday, you may have got a very different reaction. So I think we'll move on from delivery dates, because we're lingering a little bit too long on that one. We'll move on to the next news story, which comes out of Ubisoft themselves, and we've got more delays, gentlemen. So from one positive story to the next positive story.
Fantastic.
Although, in my personal opinion, delays to games aren't a bad thing. They sound it initially, but I can't remember who quoted, but it's bad game's bad, but good game's good forever.
It was Miyamoto from Nintendo.
It was. That's the guy.
Yes.
So have faith.
So what's been delayed this week?
So what's been delayed?
Should this be a new section? What's been delayed this week?
What's been delayed this week? Yeah, we'll add that in because apparently it's there. So
give me more bearer of bad news.
Yeah, so Ubisoft had their it was one of the stakeholders conferences or the financial meetings or something. They're quite regular. Good thing with Ubisoft being privatized is they come out and pretty much announce to the world all of the minute details. So we learn right off the bat, Breakpoint, Ghost Recon Breakpoint has not been doing that well. For those of you guys who jumped onto that on your current consoles. I've had one eye on it, but I didn't really get too deep into Ghost Recon Wildlands. So it's one of them where I've always got an eye on to jump into, and this was actually one I'd highlighted to jump onto with Stadia specifically. So hopefully we're going to back that one. I don't want to jump too much in that story because I don't think either of us have played it before.
No.
So I don't want to give too much impression on that. But from what I've seen, the game looks good. It plays good. It's got that very Ubisoft lick of paint to it. But evidently it's not doing as good as Ubisoft had hoped. But we mentioned just before the call, they'll definitely back it. If they commit to this for a couple of years worth of a plan, as they did with Rainbow Six Siege and Assassin's Creed Odyssey and For Honor and all those other games, I'm no doubt have a fruitful life in the years to come. And even when Stadia goes live with it, because it is one of the announcements, I'm guessing that's going to be a launch day game. It's on the docket, so that should be a thing. But in terms of their other games that they had coming out, included in the Stadia portfolio going into next year, we had Watch Dogs Legion, which was due on March the 6th, 2020. Doesn't have a date any longer.
Okay.
Gods and Monsters, which was due February 25th, 2020. Which was it's made by the Assassin's Creed Odyssey team. It was kind of a little Zelda Breath of the Wild-esque looking, more artistic aesthetic. That's no longer got a date. And Rainbow Six Quarantine, which was almost like, I believe it's like a zombie spin-off of Rainbow Six, where you take down kind of swarms of some kind of creatures. Didn't have an actual date, but naturally, I think with some of these ones being pushed back, that too gets shoved a little bit further and further into the timeline. So, what do we think of this?
I don't mind them games being delayed if it's for the good of the game. It's quite simple. This is not great for Stadia because it means people are already a bit concerned about the light library, and it looks like, well, it's going to be later in the year. And I think Stadia, we mentioned before, like, they've got a big year in 2020 before the launch of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlet, that they're going to need some good, steady games coming out. And this is bad news for Google, but I care more about the quality of the games, to be honest.
Yeah, I think long term the quality is good. It's very disappointing because looking at those dates that they had penciled in, my guess is if it was only going to be a short delay, so like by a few weeks, like akin to, I think The Last of Us on PlayStation was also pushed back at the same day, actually, I think it was. But they went from a February release to a May release, so they've already put a new date on it, whereas these are a bit more ambiguous with, they've just said later in they've specifically said the fiscal year 2020 to 2021, which potentially pushes it right up to March the 1st, 2021 is their kind of window of time they've given themselves. Obviously, I'm fingers crossed, hopefully it's not 2021 because that's a bit scary.
Pure speculation here, but some of these could be potentially getting eyed up for launch for the new consoles coming out later in 2020.
Well, I think that could be part of it. Yeah,
or closer to launch.
Do you think
if they're going to be cross-platform?
Cross-platform.
Again, we're seeing a lot of this lately, and it does lead me to think: are developers doing this intentionally at this point? Is it, I completely get the whole idea. We want to make sure that games are top quality. They're delivering the experience that everyone expects based on these AAA titles. But it seems very convenient that the timing sort of sits around new console release as well. We're talking like, 12 to 18 month delays right here? I don't know. I could be the cynic inside me, but I mean, Watch Dogs Legion is one I was really looking forward to, personally.
Yeah,
well, I haven't played either of the other two, but Legion looked really, really cool.
Yeah, I've finished 1 and 2, got the platinum for them both. Bing. They were really enjoyable. I don't think they got the appreciation they deserved, actually, and I'm glad Ubisoft was stuck with the franchise and really kind of focused on what makes it fun. Which, by the looks of Legion, which I think when it was announced, I feel like they heavily advertised it. My YouTube videos and kind of Facebook feeds were full of Legion content just a few months back.
I think, was it E3? It was
Yeah,
one of the
they
big
dropped
tentpole
it.
announcements.
And they got loads of positive kind of energy around it, which was great. Because number 2 was in San Francisco, and it was really fun, more vibrant, bit more colour. The story's about just overall a better package. It was definitely a better sequel than the original one. But this one, jumping to London, so it's coming over to the UK. We get to mess around the Houses of Parliament and stuff.
Which we've always wanted to do.
But yeah, in terms of it looked great, and I think it's weird that this was essentially going to be Ubisoft's flagpole game for that kind of first quarter March, because they've done fantastically over the last few years of dropping these games earlier in the year. I think all developers have now learned that it's actually a safe bet to launch in the quiet, or what used to be the quiet period. And Watch Dogs Legion, I think, would have benefited from that. So I'm hoping this pushback doesn't push it into that winter window where everyone's getting their Call of Duties, their FIFAs and such. Because again, you can risk sabotaging your own sales if you don't pick the correct date.
The holiday period is usually quite crowded, so I think March is usually.
Yeah, this is one of those things where if it was an Assassin's Creed, which again is rumored to be next year,
and they're gone.
Yeah, it's such a shame with this though that a game like Watch Dogs Legion as well, where, as you said, Chris, there was so much hype about it when they first announced it at E3, and then all of a sudden, as a result of it, it's just tailored off. And when they put so much emphasis on a game like that, it just seems quite a shame to let that fizzle out, because it was something that was really hyped up, and like I said before, it was one that I was really looking forward to coming out. So
yeah, especially the market team, they'll be disappointed it's going to fizzle out after all that money went into it.
Yeah,
promoting it around E3.
Yeah, they still get paid either way.
That is true. But yeah, like I said, that fizz that you've got building up to it, but I suppose that just gives us more time to play the other games that come out. Again, I always appreciate a game delay, because when I look at my back catalogue, I think, oh, thank God, it's given me a little bit more time to play through the games that I've wanted to jump onto. So yeah, push them back, put them back in the oven, spend a bit more time. So aside from that, then, what were your takes on Gods and Monsters? Because I don't think we've actually spoke about it. Richie, you're a big Zelda fan. Did this one prick up your ears at all?
I didn't even know it existed, to be honest. I must have completely missed its existence.
Oh, mate, you should check it out. It literally has the same aesthetic as Breath of the Wild.
It does. It looks really good.
Does. And the fact that
I'll definitely be looking at that.
Yeah, the fact that it's the Odyssey team as well has me really, really stoked for how detailed and fleshed out that open world is going to be. But yeah, it's essentially ancient Greece. You play as a little character, and it looks like everything's just lush greens and nice blue skies and exploring ancient Greece. But I'm guessing by the title, Gods and Monsters, you're going to get to fight some pretty cool mythological creatures and stuff in there.
Yeah, I think it's a good mix of like that ancient Greek mythology with Breath of the Wild. It's got that, like, if you look at the character art and so on, it's got that very like Clash of Clans sort of Clash Royale type aesthetic to it, going a little bit towards that Fortnite style art. It's not quite cel shaded, but it's that like kind of, I don't really know what it's called. It's cartoony, but it's edging on realism, but with really bright, vibrant colors, like you said.
Yeah,
it looks good. It looks really good.
Why do I get the feeling Richie's just Google search this while we're talking
because about it? I'm Google searching it right now.
Thank you.
What have you dug up so far, Richie?
I'm just literally search for Gods and Monsters Ubisoft, because there is a Gods and Monsters film. On Google Images, looked at the first one, and it looks very pretty. I can see what you mean with the Breath of the Wild style, kind of quite naturistic world, few ruins around. Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, I think the art style really does appeal to people, like you said, Tom. It's stuck in that middle. It's like, it is cartoon, but it's got enough fidelity to make them look a bit more detailed and realistic than you would naturally get from a cartoon. Who just love cartoons? Yeah,
sometimes these are stylistic art styles, the ones that hold up over time.
Yeah, they really are. They age fantastically well. We've seen that with a lot of the reboots and remasters that have happened over the last couple of years. The ones that have that aesthetic, I think we mentioned on like episode 1 or 2 actually regarding indies, how if you go for a definitive art style, it ages infinitely better than photorealistic choice.
Yeah.
Because it just does. But yeah, I just thought it's something I've not really looked into. I remember the trailer from E3. I remember a lot of the feedback around it was very, very Zelda Breath of the Wild-esque. And I love what I played of Zelda, and I'm also a huge Ubisoft fan, so kind of mash them together with ancient Greek mythology. I can't see them going too wrong with it. So it'll be a nice little smaller game, I'd imagine, but
Odyssey alone is great, and with the team working on this as well, combining that sort of like, quite frankly, breathtaking art style is is cool.
It is.
I can't think of another word for it, really.
Yeah,
it just is going to be great. So
I definitely think it would have been a nice little February game as well, which is a shame that it got pushed back a little bit, because that quiet period after Christmas where you're getting back into the rhythm of it, you're writing the date wrong all the time for the first couple of weeks, and it's just something drops in that quiet time when it's cold outside. We'll be right in the thick of winter then, so we'll be in some Alaska temperatures. Be bears outside for all we know. But we'll be wrapped up inside. And something like that would have been nice to play. So hopefully that's not delayed too much. Because again, it's the smaller games like that the sooner they get pushed towards that later half of the year, these are the ones that get knocked out of the park by those big AAA titles from the other publishers. And then finally, just to double down on the conversation around these particular games, Rainbow Six Quarantine. I know me and you, Richie, jumped into Rainbow Six Siege quite a bit and had a lot of fun with it over the last year. Quarantine was basically more of that, but with kind of zombie monster creatures. So I wasn't overly invested, but it could definitely be something that I'd get on board with.
Yeah, same. We've typically with Rainbow Six Siege, it's one of them games that maybe once every month or something, we'll jump in on an evening, we'll play a couple of rounds, and it's just one of them things you can just jump straight in and have a good time with.
Yeah, definitely. But either way, like I said, delays, as much as they do suck, it's really nice to know that the people who are at Ubisoft want to put more time in. In fact, we've got a quote from Yves Guillemot, who's the Ubisoft head. I hope I said that right. Does anyone else have a crack at that name? Or
Yves Guillemot.
Yves Guillemot?
I'm not going to try.
It's the Y and V. It just doesn't fit our particular language style. But anyway, he was quoted as saying more development time to ensure that their respective innovations are perfectly implemented to deliver optimal experience for players. So it might be a most generic statement that you're going to get out of a company, but in terms of what you're saying is more time, put it back in the oven, cook it a little bit longer, and it'll be ready when it's done. Which I think we all appreciate. So, moving away from delays then, we'll move on to games that are out. Richie, you've dropped this into the docket as it's the story's kind of expanded a little bit.
This is a game that should have been delayed.
Or just scrapped altogether.
Indefinitely.
Delayed indefinitely. So if no one's been keeping an eye on the news, it turns out that WWE 2K20 is shit.
Yeah, turns out it is shit.
It is shit.
I was playing a bit of devil's advocate last week by saying we hadn't played it, so it might play well. No, it doesn't. Yeah. We haven't played it, but there's enough I've seen through that Twitter feed. Yeah. It's actually a good read if you want to have a bit of fun.
It's a really good one.
There's some impressive glitches.
I follow the Game Physics subreddit as well, which is quite funny online. So if you see these, basically the idea behind Game Physics is there's two polar opposites here. You either see GIFs of incredible physics in games, whether it's things like hitboxes and so on, or utter shite. And a lot of it's been plagued with WWE 2K20 this week, with things like the ladders disappearing through the rings, characters just being stretched out and rubber banding, stairs flying off into the distance, the ref getting tangled up in the ropes. It just looks crap.
It looks like a broken PS2
It's
title.
like a glitch in the Matrix, isn't it? All them clips I saw, it just looks like there's definitely big chunks of coding that are missing in important segments of
all of it.
They just glossed over the QA phase altogether. They just went straight to release from development.
Yeah, I did notice that the developers did put out a message saying they're going to fix they've listened to the feedback and they're going to look at resolving the issues in a patch.
Interesting.
You're probably going to take a full year to make the patch to fix all the issues that we've seen. Just forget about it, write this one off and focus on 2K21.
Yeah, if I personally was the publishers or the people who hold the licensing agreements, I'd seriously look at going elsewhere. Because for all we give EA a lot of shit about the sports games and the annualization of it, FIFA and other sports ones tend to come out with at least a certain degree of polish. I know there's been a few patches with this year's FIFA that have fixed a few niggling issues they've got, but traditionally, on average, year on year, they manage to put out a game that is of a certain threshold, and I think the 2K20 WWE game might have missed that threshold by just a little bit.
It's quite impressive when you're effectively year on year iterating on the same engine to do it this badly.
Get worse.
Yeah, you tend to find more glitches when these annual releases change engines.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's went. I think there's probably a very interesting story there if any journalists want to do like a deep dive into what went wrong.
Oh, definitely. So back to the drawing board. Vince McMahon, sort them out.
Yeah.
Because, it needs someone seriously needs to tighten the ship, I think, around there.
Otherwise, your cash cow is going to start leaking.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want that cash milk everywhere.
No.
Whatever
Cash
the
milk.
hell that is. Cash milk. Cash milk. So moving on from the delights of WWE 2K20. Tom, you dropped a little bit of news about Square Enix into the topic.
I did, yeah. Looking into this a little bit further as well. It's not new news. It's not new news. It's not current, but it is something that is building up support over time. So we haven't really delved too much into potential big MMO releases on Stadia, but Square Enix are currently in talks to bring the hit MMORPG Final Fantasy 14. Not 15. 15 is already a confirmed release title. They are currently working on bringing it over to Stadia. Not just Stadia, but other streaming platforms as well. So we might see it on xCloud, might see it on PS Now, and so on. But it's just interesting to think that, with big titles like World of Warcraft, obviously they've just released Classic out there. Final Fantasy 14 has over 5 million characters across the entire all-world server. So that's the US, across Europe, across Asia as well. There's quite a big player base there, so it would be nice for them to see that actually stretch out and come across to Stadia. I still play Final Fantasy 14. I have played it for 6 years, and if I could get it on Stadia and take it with me, cool, brilliant, bring it on.
Is that subject to being able to port your characters across? Or being cross-save?
Well, they would be because, for example, I have Final Fantasy 14 on PS4 and on PC. It's one central server hosted by Square Enix where your character is going to be available no matter what. The only issue is I've had to purchase copies of the game both on PS4 and PC. So interestingly, you can't just get the game and then install it on multiple platforms. If you want to take it to another platform, you have to buy it, but your character is there still.
That's a typical affair, really.
Yeah.
It might be nice if this was a Stadia Pro bonus game. It might be a way of getting people in.
Could be. Well, who knows?
We've said before they need to get that game in for December.
They do.
Free Pro game is in December, so you never know.
True that.
But it's good. Again, it's good to see that people are actively now talking about developing for Stadia. It seems like I think once it goes live and people developers they've all got it in their hands behind the scenes. So I think realistically, any new content, there's going to be a massive influx on people paying attention to it and thinking, well, we can make more money if we simply just design it for Stadia. We've spoke before how much easier it must be developing for a cloud server that's essentially infinitely more powerful than the systems you're designing them for to start with. So hopefully that's going to give them a lot of leeway. And again, there's that Google money from the Google cash milk is also there to pay for these studios. But yeah,
nice tall glass of cash.
Yeah, no, cash milk. So other stories we had a few drop. It wasn't new news. It's really hard to say that, Tom. Actually, I can see why you struggle with it.
Yeah,
new news. There needs to be a different word for it.
Fresh, maybe.
Fresh news. Oh,
fresh.
Fresh. The word would be just news, because news implies that it is new.
New apostrophe yes.
All right, Richard. Okay. So Google opens its first studio dedicated to making Stadia games. So we knew it was going to happen. They announced it at the GDC when they announced all the Stadia information to start with. But yeah, Jade Raymond, who's the head of game studios over at Stadia, has finally she had an interview with Engadget and GameIndustry.biz where she spoke about the upcoming exclusives. And also the studio opened its doors in Montreal, so up where the team who do a lot of the Assassin's Creeds and Ubisoft are. So there's a big game developer based building up there, so they're no longer all down in San Francisco. But yeah, she was quoted as saying it's very important for first party games, in my opinion, to be games that wouldn't be possible on any other platform. So what I read into that is essentially she's utilizing the massive server base. So these Fest exclusives, I don't think they're going to be single player campaigns, which we kind of hope for. They're definitely going to utilize the ability to max out server capacity and increase player base. So any ideas what you might think that they're leaning towards there, gentlemen?
So the one thing that strikes me here is, do you guys remember Journey on PS3?
I do indeed.
Yeah. So I liked that little element of just randomly being thrown into a world with some other person who could guide you, somebody who's played it, or you could just work together and so on. I'd be interested to see that sort of element being thrown into a lot of games developed on Stadia as well. But if you consider the scale of things right here, maybe we could see, like, you're literally just in a game and there's thousands of other people just there.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I think you might find coming out of Google's first-party studios is the incorporation of other Google technologies. I was reading I think it was on gamesindustry.biz, it was suggesting things like Google's machine learning, their language recognitions could make more complex worlds, which feel like people actually lived in there because as they adapt to you playing.
People could even have actual digital jobs within the games. You've got all those extra players who actually take up on roles within these living worlds. Honestly, we're going that way. Everyone's going to be sat in a VR headset, strapped into this digital matrix world, and we're all going to share a massive server. That's how we're going to spend out the rest of our days.
I quite like the idea that Google could integrate the machine learning into video games as well, because it's really quite elaborate what they can actually do with it. If you just look at some of the AI they've developed before to play games like Go, to beat professionals at StarCraft and Dota and so on, to be able to implement something like that has real world uses could really change the way that games could be developed and the way that games could essentially evolve while you're actually playing it. Because not only do you have the AI that could be used as not just to aid things like, this whole idea that Google have talked about with like negative latency for multiplayer experiences, but also to use that machine learning to be able to change the way that characters work in the world, NPCs, to change the way that enemies react based on your playing experience and the way that you play games. You could see, increasing levels of difficulty based on the game just evolving around the way that you play it, or even just like world generation. Like the world could essentially, if you think about games like Minecraft, that can infinitely expand to a point, then you could have that sort of technology in role-playing games as well, where once again you have this world, but it's not essentially the same world that everybody else is playing with, and you could almost have a world that is generated based on what you play, like how your play style is. I think that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm interested in how it applies to especially like RPGs, which are often very character driven. How your actions can then the characters in your party can adapt to your play style. There's some real cool potentials there.
Yeah, let's say that you are playing a game like, let's take something like Mass Effect, for example, or just a staple RPG sort of roles. You could say, if you prefer to play something as support, then even though you have other NPCs playing with you as part of a group, they could almost evolve to recognize that you do play as that, as opposed to having to preset, like, right, okay, you're going to be my tank, you're going to be my damage dealer, and so on. They could almost just evolve around the way that you play. And also, it'd be pretty cool to see things like in an RPG element, let's say that we have almost like an open sandbox game where you could prefer to play sandbox games as being a builder or a constructor, someone who likes to collect resources and build things, as opposed to going into dungeons and exploring. And perhaps the world can evolve around that sort of mentality. Or if you like going into dungeons and doing a bit of dungeoneering, clearing things out like that, perhaps the world could then generate and expand on increasing the number of dungeons there. Who knows? Seriously, it's limitless if you think about the way that the tech works. Machine learning has such open ends to it that realistically it can just evolve based on loads and loads of things. It's just out of our range of thinking about it.
Excellent. So it sounds infinite possibilities, and I think this is the thing that everyone's getting hyped and excited for. As we're leaning now towards that future where it doesn't have to be programmed. You can kind of let it live and breathe and become its own thing, whether that is through machine gaming or otherwise. So I think that'll wrap up the news this week. Quite a good couple of topics we've covered off and been through in some detail. So moving on, as tradition usually dictates, is the topic of the show. Coming in at a cool 47 odd minutes into the podcast. The news is always going to take priority because it's relevant, I think, to the people out there listening.
Yes.
Topic of the show is something that's either going to be relevant to the time or something we just want to discuss. So in light of it being All Hallows Eve, this upcoming Thursday, I wanted to know what our favourite horror games are, gentlemen. Just update the audience on what you're scared shit of playing or what you've enjoyed being scared of playing.
Well, I'm a coward, so all horror games I hate.
So this Gods and Monsters title might not be for you.
It doesn't look like a horror game,
It doesn't,
but
no. It definitely doesn't have the same art style as Resident Evil.
I don't mind playing horror games if in a group of people, but on my own, it's just not fun. So
that makes sense. What about you, Tom? What's give you the chills over the years?
Ooh. Amnesia: The Dark Descent was one of them. That was a spooky, scary game for me. Just to fill you in if you haven't played it before, essentially, it's sort of an old-timey, feels Victorian in element, but it's also got this mix of sort of Lovecraftian horror, Cthulhu sort of ethos around it. You're in a house, you're basically going insane, and you have two elements to it. You have your sanity and also sort of like your heart rate you have to manage while you're going around trying to find out what the hell has happened in this house. But at the same time, there's also this monster that essentially is a figment of your imagination that's trying to kill you. And you could literally go into one area and all of a sudden this thing is right there waiting for you. You could go back 10 seconds later and it's gone because it's stalking you.
There's this jump scares, isn't it?
Jump scares, which leads me on to Alien Isolation.
Holy
shit.
that is actually a really awesome game.
It is incredibly good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of games that came with the resurgence of likes of, I think it was Outlast and Alien Isolation came out with the launch of this generation, actually, that first-person horror survival kind of game style that, yeah, being a coward much like Richie, playing them on your own doesn't appeal to me that much, but in a crowd environment, I think, Richie, we played it with one of our friends, Lee, and he basically spent 20-odd minutes locked in a cupboard because he didn't want to go out in case the alien on the ship got him.
I actually lived with him, so me and Lee played through the entire game together, and that was fucking tense.
Yeah, lots of crawling, hiding in ventilation shafts.
Yeah. Whispering to each other because we had the Kinect out because he had an Xbox One, and that was one thing that was really cool about the Kinect features in that game is it picked up sounds, so you sat there, you're on edge, so we're whispering to each other. Because we don't want to make too much noise.
Yeah, that really does. Yeah, I played a little bit of Outlast. That got me. But I think when I think back to it, the biggest thing that I remember playing was, I think, probably I was around about the 10, 11-year-old mark. And myself and my cousin, we had Dino Crisis, the PlayStation 1. I'm pretty sure it's an 18-rated game, so I don't know how we got our hands on it. Bad parenting, I suppose.
I'm not sure how much the ratings boards were actually people cared about back then.
I was thinking parents. It was more how I can't imagine we asked specifically for that game because I won't have seen it anywhere. So all I can think is my dad maybe thought, oh, he likes Jurassic Park. This is a game that has dinosaurs in it. Why not? And totally ignored the age rating. But either way, we used to play it around my nan and granddad's, and we'd take turns. Myself, my cousin, who was 12, who was a year older than me. And my little brother was probably only about 7 at the time. He didn't actually play; he just watched. Sometimes we'd let him jump on and have a go around. But there's a specific moment if you've played the game. I think you walk through a corridor and a Velociraptor jumps through the window, very similar to Resident Evil 1, where the camera angles are awkward. They make you feel really claustrophobic. You don't have much control over your directions which you're running in. And then out of nowhere, Velociraptor. You follow a trail of blood. And a Velociraptor jumps out and scares the absolute shit out of you. And I'm quite happy because that's rumoured to be one of Capcom's next remakes. That'll be really exciting. It's been a long time since we had a good dinosaur game.
There's rumours that they're remaking Resident Evil 3 and they want it out soon.
Yeah, I was just about to go on with that actually and say, likewise, Nemesis. That used to scare the living shit out of me, that did as a kid. Oh, I don't know how I ever beat that game.
I can't remember where I read it, but there was Capcom has said that people often have 2 and 3 kind of mixed up in their own mind, so they want to just get them both out there.
Yeah, I mean, the engine's gorgeous for them. I think Resident Evil 2 specifically is a lot of people's game of the year for 2019.
It makes sense for them to do it then.
So if you've got the engine, it looks gorgeous. You've got the essential blueprints for the entire game. the last one is in the running for a lot of Game of the Year awards. It makes both monetary sense and commercial sense, because they're having a bit of a good wind at the moment. Capcom looks good, but yeah, if they announce the Dino Crisis one, that's, as much as I'm not a horror game fan, that's definitely one I'll be jumping into just for the scares.
I think that's just one of these things, really, that the way that horror games have evolved over time has changed. If you look back at games like Resident Evil and Dino Crisis, it does make you sort of laugh at the age rating when you look at it graphically. I get it for the content, like, fair enough.
Back then, the graphics, it didn't.
The polygons of
that was at
Jill
the time.
It
was the highest. Yeah, it was the highest it could possibly get. But yeah, I'm sure going back and playing them now would be really interesting to see if you still got the same level of jump scares, or you were just that frustrated with the control mechanics. The scariest thing in that game is the controls and the camera angles now.
Mind you, shout out to Dead Space, by the way. That's
Actually, I have a really good story about Dead Space. It was Gary, we've mentioned on previous episodes.
Shout out to Gary.
Gary with the 2 R's. I was around his flat one time, and Dead Space was the free PlayStation Plus game that particular month. I'd never played it before, so we thought, right, we'll turn the lights off, we'll jump on this, we'll get some snacks in, some beers, and we'll have a crack at this Dead Space game. I think we played through about 40 minutes. We got to a point where there was something happening in a laboratory on a table. There was a surgery or something going on. There was some kind of creature on it, and the lights were flickering, and the music was horrifically scary. And I basically popped to the toilet, and when I came back, we were on the PlayStation home screen, and the game was gone. And we said, what was going on? It was that scary. We just basically said, he just said no, and just deleted it and uninstalled it from the console. And we didn't play it anywhere beyond that point because it scared the shit out of him that much.
I actually have a similar story to that. I got Dead Space on a Humble Bundle years ago, and thought, I didn't know anything about it. I went, oh, this looks a pretty cool game. I'll jump into it, jump in completely blind. It's like, within an hour, I went, fuck that.
Yeah. The second I came up across the Necromorphs, I was just like, I'm done.
Didn't realise this was going to be a survival horror. I'm not in.
I can't do this.
Yeah, I've heard number 3's terrible, but 1 and 2 are in their own right horror masterpieces. So it's a shame we've not had any. EA, pull your finger out. Get these remasters. Get a Mass Effect one done. Get a Dead Space one done.
Well, Capcom just shown what you can do with Resident Evil 2. So going proper survival horror. So EA, Dead Space.
Just give me my sci-fi back. I just want my sci-fi back. Gimme.
That fix. Gimme. So there are our horror stories then. So I think we'll move on, being cautious of time once again. We'll have a quick stop off at the Game of Shame station. So gentlemen, I think we spoke about it last week. We picked up on some horrible shamed lists, but we all have, unfortunately. We'll start off with you this week, Richie. What are you bringing to the table this week?
For me this week is Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5. I have not played either of them. I played 5 very briefly when I was trying out PS Now, and my second time with PS Now, because we haven't actually touched on it, was a lot better. But yeah, I don't know. And with GTA 5 especially being one of the biggest sellers on PlayStation, I just haven't given it the time it probably deserves. I don't actually own the game. And I know I can pick up for really quite cheap as well, so I don't really have a good excuse.
Well, I'll hold my hand up and say 5. I played a lot of the online, but the single player, I just didn't really get around to playing the single player much.
I really enjoyed the single player. I thought it was quite unique what they did. So depending on how far into it you got, Richie, is essentially it was the first game that I'm aware of that gave you 3 protagonists, and you jumped every story chapter. You jumped back and forth between different people throughout the campaign. So you had 3 very different people, all with different methods of killing, running over people, committing many, many crimes. But yeah, you jump between them, you got all the perspectives, and they always kind of, at the end of each kind of act of the play, essentially, they came together to do a bank heist or a major beat of the story. And depending on your outcome, spoilers, but certain characters get affected in different ways. But I really enjoyed it, actually.
Yeah. I think I only played an hour or 2. I was playing it more to test out PS Now rather than to play Grand Theft Auto.
But again, I don't think Grand Theft Auto 5 is going anywhere anytime soon. So no doubt, if it does come across the Stadia, which I'd imagine Rockstar are looking at, and if they're committed to Red Dead Redemption, I can't imagine GTA is that far behind.
Well, it's Rockstar. They do weird things. It might be 2025 before the releases.
I mean, there was a VR game for LA Noire just came out last week, so they're definitely still dipping their feet and doing backwards weird things. So yeah, GTA will be there eventually, I'd imagine. What about yourself, Tom?
Myself, Fallout. Fallout. Sorry,
Which one?
Bethesda. Anything anything after 3. So, and even then with 3, I barely played it. It's just so sort of like the modern day Fallouts as opposed to the older isometric Fallouts. What can I say about it? So Fallout 3, I only ever dabbled with it when I got my first real gaming computer. I remember I got Fallout 3 specifically to try out HDMI. It was my first computer that actually had an HDMI port in the graphics card, because before that it was all VGA and so on. But I was well excited. I had an HDMI TV. I remember it, a huge by the standard at the time, 42-inch TV in the living room. Took my gaming PC downstairs, HDMI cable, whacked it in, played a little bit. I enjoyed it, but I sort of got lost amongst the open world of it a little bit.
Yeah, I found that with Bethesda games, it can happen.
Yeah, and I got to a point where I just felt I was enjoying it. Like, don't get me wrong, but then the scenario, this sort of like 1950s-esque dystopian, like post-nuclear future, it sort of got lost on me a little bit, and I don't really think I was taken by it. Other Bethesda titles, like if I look at Skyrim, for example, absolutely love it. I dig fantasy till the cows come home. Another cow thing. Don't know why. I'm on cows today, apparently, guys. Yeah. I don't know why.
Go get yourself a cheeseburger.
I think I'm gonna have to. But it's with Fallout. I never really got into it. So I never touched 4. I never touched New Vegas.
Well, I'm with you there as well. So I actually have in my house 2 copies of Fallout 4, and I've not played it. One was lent to me by my brother, and I actually got one free with the PlayStation 4. I bought the Days of Play Slim PS4 last summer during their big E3 blowout that they do. And when I purchased it, the guy behind the counter basically just gave me a copy and went, "Oh, you get this free with it as well." Wasn't mentioned in the promotion, wasn't discussed any time throughout the transaction. It was pretty much at the end when he was bagging it up. He had a last minute thought and just went, "Oh, you get a copy of Fallout 4 free as well." And
he's probably been told he needs to get rid of the stock, and it goes towards his personal
potentially.
Yeah, I got rid of it. So I throw in to make this sale for the PlayStation.
Yeah, so I have an open copy and I have a sealed copy that I've not played. I didn't play a lot of Fallout Shelter.
I enjoyed Fallout.
I jumped to that. I really, really enjoyed it, and I love. It's one of those games that that post-apocalyptic world and the foraging and the people who've been radiated and stuff. It really does appeal to me, but it's just one of these kind of shameless things that I'm cautious of how big of a world it is, and I think this is my problem with a lot of Bethesda ones, that it seems like I just don't click with Bethesda ones, but yeah, I think it is just that fear factor of, I'm already in the middle of playing this massive open world game. Do I have time in my adult life to jump in and play another massive one? So it's one of those, from the outside looking in, hugely appreciative of everything it does, but will I ever get around to playing it? No,
yeah,
I don't know.
They tend to be more about the world rather than the story for me, Bethesda games. And if you're not into investing the time in the world, then yeah.
I mean, a prime example of that now was you mentioned, Tom, New Vegas. The developers from that, Obsidian, have just obviously had Outer Worlds. Oh, damn it! I knew I wasn't going to do that. Yeah, Outer Worlds and Outer Worlds.
I was waiting for that.
Every podcast I've listened to over the last few weeks have messed that up, and there you go, straight away.
Following trend.
Outer Worlds by Obsidian. It was obviously, apparently very similar to New Vegas and Fallout, kind of mix mashed together. It's the best of both. From the concept, that's so appealing to me. It looks great, and all the reviews are really good for it. But at this particular time, I haven't bought it. There's something that's just stopped me from jumping into it, even though I know I'll enjoy it. And I've not played an open world game like that in a while. It feels like, especially this year, because it's been quite dry on the games front this year. But yeah, I just don't know what stopped me from getting it on order. It's just one of them things that I'll probably like everything about it, but I just don't have that push to tip me over the edge to buying it.
Yeah, well, the thing that's stopping me is literally Google Stadia. I'm about to fork out £120 on Google Stadia. I don't want to be investing in new games right now. It's that simple for me.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point because again, Outer Worlds, when I saw the announcement, I was all up for it at E3. I was really hyped for it. I loved the idea. I loved the tongue in cheek with the trailer and so on, taking a dig at the history of Fallout 4 and so on. But yeah, it's on my list, but perhaps not until it's gone down a little bit in price, or perhaps once Stadia's up and running.
Yeah, there's the only little caveat I think, which is in the back of my mind, is preventing me from buying it, is potentially that I know Obsidian are owned by Microsoft now. So being a PlayStation owner, a soon-to-be Stadia owner, and a Nintendo Switch owner, I feel like there's that little voice in my head that says, if you enjoy this game, and in several years' time they come out with Outer Worlds 2, it's going to be exclusive to Xbox.
You know what they should do for Outer Worlds 2? They should call Outer Worlds 2 Outer Worlds 2, The Outer Wilds.
It should be a pair up for them. But yeah, so I think that's also there niggling away at me, thinking you don't want to commit to a franchise that potentially you're not going to be able to play on your current set of systems anytime soon. So yeah, watch that space. But yeah, sounds like we've got a couple of games there then that we've added to the Game of Shame Wall of Fame. My personal one was Resident Evil 2. I've not played it yet, but I was speaking to Richie beforehand and saying we're having a little Halloween night this week because we're not going out trick-or-treating because we're far too old for that.
Yeah,
plus we can just go to the shops and spend
our
hand out
wages on as much sweets. And eat the sweets.
Exactly, just lock the door, no one's home, and delve into it. But no, we're doing a Halloween night where we're having some food, we're having some friends around, we'll have a couple of drinks, and we did it last year or the year before with Until Dawn, where we basically just handed the controller around, all took turns, and
got everyone killed.
Richie ended up getting everybody killed in our team. So we'd done so well to have them all survive until the controller got past to Richie and he made every wrong decision.
I was trying to overthink things.
Which, oh, what's that noise to the left? Everyone in the room? Richie, don't go down there, Richie. I'm just going to wander off to the left.
I assumed oh no, you avoid the noise, thinking trying to be careful, and that's when they'll get you. So to go towards the noise, be brave. Nope.
Richie's the guy who grabs the banana instead of the gun in Scary Movie. So Resident Evil 2. Yeah, Resident Evil 2 is my particular game of shame for this particular horror season, but hopefully we're going to rectify that this week. We're going to jump on and play through some Resident Evil 2 and swap over and laugh at how bad people who've never played it are with the controls.
Fantastic.
But also the jump scares and stuff. So that's going to be fixed. That's going to be fixed for me. But yeah, just quickly then before we wrap up, we are about tracking on time of going over as we are every week. But just before we go, what have we been playing? Richie, quickly, what have you been playing this week?
I've been playing Final Fantasy IX and Borderlands, the pre-sequel.
Nice.
Literally playing the pre-sequel because I'm currently house sitting for my parents and I turned on my dad's PlayStation, and the last thing I must have been playing was Borderlands 2 when it came out on PlayStation Plus early in the year. So I was like, yeah, I'll play some Borderlands. That's about it, really.
Because the art style holds up really well.
It does.
Exactly.
It's never changed.
And, how are your Witcher antics coming along?
It's been about 6 weeks since I last played, so I've given up. I've accepted it. I've accepted defeat. I might go back to it later, but I do know I still would need to get the platinum and one more full playthrough after the little bits of tidy up I was doing. So it's like, nah.
I do wish game developers would just put in a feature that says, like, if you haven't played a game for X amount of time, you just, when you load it up, I know the Witcher does it quite well. Like it does a brief rundown, doesn't it, of like the story so far,
previously
essentially
on The Witcher.
Yeah, but it should just pop up with like, here's the controls, just to remind you, this is where you are, this is what you were doing. Like,
I could probably pick up and play, but the problem would be is I'm no longer invested in the story anymore, and it's the actual playing of the game because I'm playing quite a high difficulty.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that with Horizon Zero Dawn, jumping in with the DLC. I had no clue what I was doing. Yes, I had all the best armor and upgrades and everything, but yeah, I jumped back in that game and it was a very steep introduction.
How do I kill these things?
Yeah, I'm being attacked by a giant steel mechanical Tyrannosaurus Rex and I don't even know how to roll yet. It's very difficult to jump back into.
That is a problem.
What about yourself, Tom? Have you been cracking away at this week?
I am finally at the point with Borderlands 3 where it feels like a Borderlands game. I have found a grenade mod that splits when I throw the grenade into 3 grenades, and then those grenades each split into 2 grenades. And for every grenade that hits an enemy, it rains money. It feels like Borderlands.
Wow.
I used to always like the singularity grenades.
It's now a laggy piece of shit when I play it on PS4. There are so many grenades and so many explosions that are going off my screen with so much cash raining down. I have no problems playing it like this because it's literally just raining money and I'm just raking it in, buying all the shit I need to complete the game. I'm having a hell of a time. Borderlands 3, they've just announced, they've just released the Bloody Harvest for Halloween as well. So
yes, I've seen that.
Having a bit of fun with that. It's a laugh. It is a real laugh. But that's me for the week.
That's me. So I've been ticking away at my Arkham Asylum Platinum. Still ticking away at that story mode. I've got my final playthrough on hard and a few challenge things to get wrapped up, so I'm still ticking away at that. I jumped on to Concrete Genie this week, the PlayStation exclusive. A little small, I don't want to say indie game, but the team that created it was very small in comparison to the usual AAA standard size studios that we're expecting. It's great. I'm loving it. It's one of those nice little games you play in between massive open world games where it's a small condensed story, gorgeous, absolutely beautiful to look at and play through. You play as a small boy who's getting bullied in kind of a world that's absent of colour. And these kind of genie/ghost things almost empower you with a paintbrush that lets you draw amazing graffiti art up on the walls using the motion controls. It's the first time I've used motion controls in a long, long time.
Wow.
Is that using the controller or using PlayStation Move?
No, you can use PlayStation Move. It is VR compatible, but I've not jumped into that yet. However, when you essentially paint the graffiti on the walls, you just tilt the controller and move it around. When you watch someone play a games console who's never played one before, and they're playing a racing game, and they end up tilting massively off to the right, as though they're going around the corners, as though it's going to have some impact.
When they're dodging bullets and literally
dodging the screen. Yeah, it's very much like that, but it's after a couple of drawings, you become very fluent in it, and the drawings come to life, and it's very much something torn between almost like a Roald Dahl-esque story. The genies coming to life and they pop out of the walls essentially and become characters you interact with throughout the story. But it's quite whimsical. But as far as a palette cleanser goes, I picked it up for £22. So it wasn't going to break the bank. I really enjoyed it. I always like supporting the independent studios that are kind of working on these titles because I think they got shafted a little bit, Concrete Genie, because the day it came out was the same day they announced the PlayStation 5 official name. So it got a bit washed under the rug with everything else.
It seemed to be pushing a lot into adverts though for it. I've seen a lot on YouTube recently.
Yeah, that's good to hear because again, it's I can't imagine it's going to do as well as they'd hoped just because it is that smaller title and it didn't get that much of a public push.
I hope it does well because these are sort of games when they do well encourages other developers to take risks, do something new instead of just going for the same tried and tested things over and over and over again.
Yeah, and it certainly feels like it, and the trophy list is fantastic. It's lined up with the story really well. So every time I'm kind of hitting a chapter, I'm learning a new feature. The trophy pops and it ties in with what I'm learning and what I'm seeing. So it's ticking over quite nice, and it is a nice little palette cleanser to jump into. And aside from that, I jumped in last night and played FIFA 2004.
Did I hear that right?
2004.
Okay.
I had a FIFA games competition with my brother, cousin, and some other people. My dad actually had a game as well. And,
nice. Okay.
We basically went back and played through all the old FIFAs, working our way up to the current one in a competitive manner.
You're gonna have to bust out that SmackDown versus Raw 2007, then, aren't you?
I had it with me, but we never actually got around to it. The mechanics don't hold up well, but it's nice to see some local teams on there who no longer exist in the higher leagues. But yeah, 2004. So that was a throwback for me.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic.
Excellent. So they're the games we've played this week. That brings us to, I think, once again, the longest podcast recording we've done so far.
We're getting longer every week.
Yep, it's longer every week. Yeah, we're going to have to check out.
Should we just keep this trend going until eventually we take the entire Sunday to record an episode?
It's going to be a 24-hour stream by the lax of it. But I think, yeah, so one thing we've not mentioned on the podcast, I think, is future plans. And I know a lot of our listeners have mentioned kind of what are our future aims and goals. I think we've discussed it amongst ourselves that we do want to do some kind of live stream once we know what YouTube's integration to Stadia is going to be like, and we've got our head around how we can all best get together because we don't all live nearby. How we can all best get together and kind of pull some content where you're going to see our faces, and we'll play some games, and we might do a long 24-hour stream, but we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. Anything from the two of you to drop that you'd like to drop in before we go?
quite happy with how things are going at the moment. I'm just, like I say, we're in a position right now where we're waiting now. Last 19 days, counting them down. Maybe a few more days than 19 for some of us.
I know, but, soon, we'll see.
As I say, soon. We'll find out.
Yeah,
but
just wait for that Stadia Connect. Google,
hopefully
next
week we'll have a little bit more info on what to expect. But yeah, that's about it, really.
Fantastic. Excellent. So yes, thank you once again for listening, everyone. Remember, if you'd like to support us a little bit more, you can help this podcast keep on podding. You can head over to patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia and help out the SOS cause, which eventually is going to help us do more things like streaming and pulling together some better content. If you'd like to keep listening to us, you can follow us over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many others. From myself, Tom, and Richie, enjoy your Halloween, everyone. Remember, don't get your head stuck in a pumpkin.
Have a spooky one.
Goodbye.
Watch out for that cash milk. My name's Chris. That's been Tom. Cheeky guy with the beard's Richie. We've been Sound of Stadia. Catch you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.